Is there anyone who was told you they're not coming?
Yes, Kathleen said she's not.
Okay.
She's off in someplace named Rockland something or other. She said something that just was weird.
Didn't make sense.
Yeah, that thing, it didn't make sense. I don't know what
Like she butt dialed us or something.
I just
Well, I did actually look. I didn't know what was that about. And they have a short-term rental task force, which I thought sounded pretty cool. Maybe Jackson has a task force. Or maybe a rapid response unit, a short-term rental rapid response unit. Anyhow, it was interesting because they did, a lot of what they did in Rockland was similar, to what we did.
Hmm.
And there are things that were more stringent and things that were less stringent. One of the things that they did is they didn't really restrict based on residential versus commercial that I could see. But you had to either be a full-time resident of the property that you were short-term renting out, or you were required to hire a local property management service management for it. So they were sort of bringing it back into the community in, a commercial way,
Mm-hmm.
which, that certainly has
the Conway, is something about Madison now.
I haven't heard of that.
The article was their hired firm to do an inventory
Hmm.
of all of them. Then next year, after they get the inventory, they'll take some decisions on what to do.
Something like that came across, a couple of years ago. It was really expensive.
Yeah.
I remember, it was like 100,000 or something to get
Well,
that.
Conway, I think, hired
Yeah.
a firm to do their inventory.
I think the price has come down.
Have we had an inventory?
No,
Do we have any idea how many STRs we have?
I know.
we have estimates.
Ellen, are you guys, John? I thought you guys are looking to figure out a way to do an inventory, right? To look like the Google
For
search.
short-term rental.
Well, there are, what's it called, AirDNA will give you, it sort of tells you how many active rentals there are in a particular area. And before we put in our ordinance, it was like 100, varied, 125 to 150 percent.
Yeah, and of that number, so many of them are from Jackson. They're about 35 or so are not from Jackson. They're in the Jackson area. Like they're like in the Nordic thing, which is right on the line there, but it's considered Jackson. From their perspective, they don't really care about whether it's Jackson or by zip or whatever.
But there's no way of getting a number that are actual cash. You know,
Well, if they're running it through Airbnb or VRBO or something like that, they
Yeah, those are easy.
yeah, it's the ones that are doing it themselves.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, whether it's the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s now, how long have people been renting their places out to their neighbors and for 2 weeks this and 2 weeks that, and come on up and you can have the keys. And that's a short-term rental.
And once they get established, I know some of these apartments, once they get established, they don't have to advertise.
Yeah.
It's all cash.
How many permits have we given already?
Total?
Yeah.
Now, we're up past 60, aren't we? We average like 6 or 7 meetings we
Can you
do
check to see if I'm plugged in there?
Yeah,
Let's try that.
last April.
you should be.
How about the middle box there? The
Yeah, it's
floor.
green.
The box on the floor?
Yeah, it says it's green right now.
I think we missed one, Lynn.
It's weird.
Welcome, welcome.
How come you people look so early?
I thought I was gonna be the last one.
Because we're nervous, seeing people live, it's really scary.
You have the furthest distance.
Yes, I do.
You're definitely plugged in.
Did you have to take a plane or what?
Yeah, I did. Then I had to row the rest of the way. There we go. Howdy. There we go. Yeah. Where's our calendar?
5 packs.
It's over there.
What do you think? Should we get started?
Aren't we waiting for some people for our public hearing? Do you expect anyone?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I'm emailing now.
We can deal with one order of business, I think.
I have a complicated other business. So we can put that for a while.
Okay. Oh. All right, why don't we get started?
They should be calling in a few minutes.
Pardon?
Lori should be calling in on here.
Okay,
They're not
make a
coming.
minute, yeah, okay, great. We don't really know. Should we sign in so we know who's here?
Yes. How much you see this coming in line here.
Hi David, how are you?
Hi, Tom.
All right, let's start the meeting and determine who's here.
I'm here.
All right, since we are masked up here, maybe we can each identify ourselves. That would be good. Scott, you want to start? Scott Badger?
Scott Badger, I'm here.
Sarah Kimball's here.
Jim Wasco. Huntley Allen.
John Allen.
David Campbell.
Chris McAleer.
And Bill Terry. All right, this evening, let's see what we've got.
First thing on the agenda is the public hearing regarding the two things. One, just update on the held documents. Remember last month we held documents as far as today. As far as Sarah's concerned with Joey, we have not heard anything. I don't know if you've heard anything regarding the decision to move forward with submitting those documents.
They don't want to do that. They want to hold.
Still hold? Okay.
All right, let's decide, determine who's going to be voting members
Oh, sorry.
this evening. John, welcome.
Great to be here.
It's like
First-
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your first meeting as selectmen's representative. Have you been previously a selectmen's representative for the board? So you kind of understand,
A little bit, yeah. I'm not a master at it, but I am.
none of us are, so you can fit right in.
But,
Um,
Can we move the mic like in between?
Regular members are Scott, Sarah,
Chris.
Chris,
How
and
soon we forget.
David, myself, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and John is 6. So one of the two of you need to be a voting member this evening.
I was last time. You can have a chance to.
I was last time too.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
We both were.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right.
All right, you guys can flip a coin, but you know.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Okay, I'll do.
All right, please, if you will, you are a voting member this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen Dougherty did send her notice that she will not be here this evening. She's somewhere on the coast of Maine. All right, so first order of business is, please, if I could add one thing in. We need to, according to the notice that we received, if we're going to allow members to attend via Zoom, we have to agree to do that. So I guess the question I have for the board is, do we wish to have members be able to meet by Zoom if they need to? Or not? It's just a rule, a change to our rules of procedure if we choose to do so. So open for discussion, please.
Well, it does allow people to participate if they happen to be in Maine, say.
Yes, but we have to agree to do that because our current rules do not allow. We have to be here in person. The
But if we're traveling, it gives us the option.
gives us the option. So
Seems like. why
do we
not?
want to be able to do that or not?
I
I'm gonna
would
say
think
yes.
so, yeah.
I think so.
Do I hear a motion to change our rules of procedure to allow someone, and do you want to do this forever and ever, or you want to do this for the next, for a time, limited time, or?
I think until we take a vote to change.
I would say that.
Okay, motion,
I second that.
who's motion?
I'll take motion.
Who's motioning?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Does that have to be documented? We can talk to you later. That has to be documented somewhere else beside the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Did you have another
I did, other business.
business that's not on the agenda?
You've got the minutes to take out.
Yeah, right.
Approve the minutes.
Minutes first.
All right, minutes.
Everybody should have received a copy, plus there's a copy here on the table.
By the way, I have to say on the minutes, Will's doing an excellent job. You know, when we first started, took a little bit of work, but this last time through, I didn't have one comment to make to him, so that's pretty cool.
I move that we accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
No further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain because I wasn't here.
A note of one abstention.
I wasn't here either, but I voted.
You can vote, it's okay. Just talk
Do
to
whatever
you.
your little heart decides. Thank you, thank you.
It-
I will anyway.
Wasn't objecting to that.
No one will object, that's for sure. I will, as I did on the Zoom meetings, I will not call roll unless there is someone who has a nay and it's not clear what the vote is. And then I will ask for a roll. All right, sounds like next on the agenda.
Business not on the agenda.
Business not on the agenda.
So speaking as a property owner, not as a board member.
And a property owner.
And so the property that I live on is, it's really a planned unit development. Jackson doesn't really have that per se, although cluster development is a type of PUD. But you could really call the property that I'm on as a non-clustered cluster development. And it's approved with 5 home sites, but the home sites are sort of spread across the property. They are defined by a 150-foot radius from the center of the primary dwelling unit per home site. Of course, that requires that there be a constructed primary dwelling unit on the home site. There's only 2 of those of the 5. The common land is everything not included in this 150-foot radius. And so it's approximately 8 acres within the 5 home sites and then 32 acres of common land. And it may be, it's possible that we might want to relocate because the potential home sites are located on a map and there are test pits in the sewer. So I think that if we want to relocate, we probably at least need to go to the selectmen and building inspector, not the planning board. I'm not quite positive, but what's probably more likely is that we would, if possible, reduce the number of sites from 5 to either 3 or 2, and then and thereby add to the common land. Take the the 6, little less than 6 acres if it's 3 sites that we're removing, and add that to the common land. The question is that a subdivision? Is it a lot line adjustment? Or a merge? I mean, what is that? How would we go about changing?
Recording in progress.
Scott, why would you have to do anything? I mean, if you just never utilize those extra 2 lots.
Primarily because we're paying taxes on 3 home sites that may never become building sites. And which probably, and there'd be a lot of math involved, so I'm not entirely sure, but we'd probably pay less in tax if it were 2 or 3 home sites and a larger amount of common land.
To put that back in current use.
Well, there's a difference between current use and common land.
Okay.
This would be common land because that's part of this development. Current use is something a little bit different.
Is it in current use?
No, and that's another question. I assume that land cannot be common land and current use, temporary, at the same time. But
That I don't know.
But I don't know.
Let's see right now.
But isn't common land already restricted in terms of development and such?
Only with the governance that created it.
But in the ordinance, it says that it's, I believe it's restricted what you can do with common land, because that land needs to be left available to all the residents of the development.
Yeah.
And so you can put a shed up maybe.
Right,
You
right.
can't do anything.
But you can't put up a house.
Right, you can't do anything that's gonna restrict the use of the land.
Right.
And so, current use doesn't conflict with that, but it's sort of an overlapping,
Yeah.
identical layer, or very
Yeah,
similar.
the actual descriptors of either are very different. Something that's in current use is generally not developable and is restricted and more restricted than common land would be. Common land generally is just a descriptor for the inhabitants of a particular group. You know this stuff better than I do. And if the common land is to be developed in any way, the members of the development have to agree as to how that happens. We saw that with earlier with the driveway request we had the other last year, actually the year before now, where folks in this condominium development simply made a choice to allow a certain use of common land. That really didn't require the planning board's approval. If you're looking to recharacterize, though, a approved plan, I think you're gonna have to get an approved plat, not necessarily us looking at it to say, bless it, but simply to demonstrate that it is now recharacterized, similar to what we had when the Wentworth condos did a review of their property, and they recast some of the lines within that to reflect some changes that actually had occurred but were not on the plat. They had to present it to us, not to ask for a blessing, but simply to say we reviewed it.
Well, actually, in looking into this, it appears that there should have been as-built plans presented once there was construction.
Yeah.
And my guess is at best, only one of those has ever made it.
Right, and that was somewhat similar to Wentworth. They had some as-built requirements to update, so if you're asking to recharacterize, I don't know how that affects the taxation or how that gets looked at, but it certainly has to get registered so that it's there, and I would expect that when that happens, there should be some kind of indicator for somebody to relook at what's going on there to determine if there's some change in how things are being taxed.
That would be, if it get, excuse me, if it gets assessed, the assessor would be the one who would say what's taxable or not.
I don't know how that works.
You know, I believe right now there's a tax bill for each of the 5 lots, then there's a tax bill for the common land,
Okay.
and then there may even be a tax bill for the barn. I'm not quite clear on that.
Mhm.
The whole thing is kind of.
So it sounds like there should be some change, if not reduction.
Yeah, it was set up by my dad, you know, back in 2001 or so, to ensure, you know, some tax considerations, but mostly it was to ensure that my brothers and I all had a place to build if we wanted to, and to some degree try to make it a badger land. At this point in time, we're at a point where what's going to happen has happened. The 2 brothers that haven't built, or one is definitely not going to, the other is very unlikely to. My dad had thought that he and my mom would maybe build a smaller house also, and that's why there are 5 lots, or 5 home sites. That's not going to happen at this point. So, you know, things have changed, and it's probably time to not have my mom pay the tax bill on all those lots that probably won't get utilized for those home sites.
Sounds like you need to have a redraw of your plat to be presented.
Yeah. Well, and the first thing we need to do is get those as-built done at least. Get those. Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Anybody else have any more input?
I do. As far as, you know, when the short-term rentals are signing their paperwork for, they do have.
Well, I mean, we're all set with Scott.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine. I'm not a voter, but I just, okay.
Okay, please, yes, go ahead.
There are, I don't know how many, there are a few, I will say, are not reading the paperwork and just signing it. And I guess maybe there should be some type, it's like up at Jackson Falls, if there's not a parking spot in a spot, they feel they can park between the signs. Well, this here, unless we put something in bold red letters that they possibly can be personally liable if there was an injury or a death on that property, once they sign that paperwork, if it's because they don't have smoke detectors or the egress, I think maybe it would force people to read, more people to read the paperwork, and before they sign the document.
Do we require proof of insurance?
We do not require proof of insurance.
There's something Rockland does.
Part of the reason we don't is we really are not asking them to do more than we ask any resident in terms of, you know, we skirted a lot of issues when we put together the affidavit process. The affidavit is an affidavit. If you talk to our attorney, it is a legal document. And it says what it says. That they are doing these things, and if someone sued them because they're not doing those things, they would have a piece of paper that they legally attested to that said they were doing those things. If that caused the death of someone or an injury to someone that occurred, they're liable.
Well, because that was the next thing I was going to say.
Just as you would be if you were a homeowner and something happened in your home and and someone said, you did something that you weren't supposed to do, you had that slippery floor or whatever it is that caused the problem, that you're liable for something that happens on your property.
I'm just wondering, though, if it forced more people to read it, to realize what they do need.
You know, we can bring the horse to the trough, but we can't make it drink.
It would seem to me that that's, if they're liable or not, that's a decision that would be made after the fact, not before the fact. We can't tell them that they're liable
You
if
can say
somebody,
they may be.
they could be, I mean, but I don't think it has any standing. It just might be a warning that, maybe you should have insurance, liability insurance, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't see how we could, number one, force them to do it, and I don't see how we could assume that they'd be liable if they didn't do it. That would be the course of the sign.
Well, there's no way we can force them, but I'm saying giving them extra incentive to read what they're signing.
Don't let the freestaters hear you say that.
Because I know there's one property that didn't come up tonight, but it was going to, and the person bought the property sight unseen, and put it up for short-term rental, signed the paperwork, he's never even been in the unit.
That's probably pretty stupid.
Yeah, I think that's why it's not before us now.
Done?
I think as far as the selectman perspective, when we were talking about it, was that the less management we have of it, the less liability we have of it. So if somebody says, hey, I met all this smoke detectors, handrails, da-da-da-da-da-da, and my house is safe, and it isn't, then they're on the hook for it. But if we have to go in and check it, and something happens and we miss something, then we become liable, and then we're on the hook for it liability-wise. So that's kind of why we felt we needed to put the liability on them by making them sign that affidavit that said, hey, you're on the hook for it one way or the other. You said everything was hunky-dory. We can't go in residence without permission and check things, so it's on you.
The way the law is set right now, the only way we can go in and do an inspection is on a complaint.
No, I never said going to do this, I just said big bold letters, just to possibly make that one person read what he's signing.
I think that if you are signing a legal document, if you're like most people, you don't read it anyway, you just sign the damn thing.
It's like your liability. You didn't read it, too bad.
And if you didn't read it, too bad. Like when you read that thing that says, do you agree to the conditions on this website? And you say, agree.
That's a little different than just putting your name on it, though. If you're clicking a button.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a kid doing that. Now you're signing your name to it, so you have a legal document.
Right.
Now, if somebody has a short-term rental and they don't have, haven't gone through our process of getting a conditional use permit, is there a penalty?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the first part.
If somebody has a short-term rental and they don't come and get a special use permit,
Yeah, we send them a violation notice, and it goes through the system. They have the time to appeal, and they can bring it to the lawyer. Yeah, there's a process, absolutely.
is there a,
But we only know that if somebody tells us that. It's not like we go out and research it. Sometimes we hear through the grapevine, but we have to get a written complaint before we act on it.
okay, so somebody could be running a short-term rental and everything is,
Under the wire, yes, absolutely. There's no, that's on them. Again, we can't police that. We don't know unless somebody complains about it, says, hey, we had 15 people there, and
Unless
we
you
put
put
a
together
short-term
a
rental.
response unit.
We don't respond to that.
I mean, that's why I think, like Madison and some of the Congress, that's why they're doing the inventory. We never did an inventory to say how, these are the list of ones we have.
But again, somebody says, I'm not running a short-term rental, they are, you can't force them to. But if we find out, that's a different story. Then we can force the ordinance. But we can only do that with a written complaint. It can't be hearsay.
okay.
You can't, unless somebody, like Kevin Bennett often catches things on the internet. Not that I wouldn't say it's part of his job, but he does do that, because he'll see what's out there. And he'll catch people once in a while, but
John,
we're
was that,
we're not actively out there looking for it.
John, was that a choice? I mean, the way our zoning ordinance is written is that the selectmen are responsible for enforcing the zoning ordinance. And so you're saying that your way of enforcement is by complaint, not by an active
Correct.
process?
Yeah. Sometimes we hear these things. For example, there was, I think it was in the last meeting we had, Kevin had actually been in the house prior to it being sold, and the guy who was buying it was turning it into an Airbnb, and he knew ahead of time they didn't have proper windows, etc.
Mhm.
That type of situation we do hear about.
Yeah.
But that's, that happens a lot more than you think,
Yeah.
but that's Kevin's deal.
Yeah, no,
But
and I appreciate that. I mean, you're also responsible for enforcing speed limits and other things, and you don't go around.
You can't catch everybody going over the speed limit, obviously, it's not.
It is something though that will probably accelerate a little bit, I think, because up until now, most people are people that have been doing short-term rentals. And so, we really don't have that onerous a process for them to continue doing short-term rentals if if they're grandfathered.
Mhm.
It's moving forward, where people decide, hey, I want to do a short-term rental, but East Jackson's going to restrict what I can do, so I'm not going to sign up because I'll be denied, so I'm just going to do it. And so I think there'd be new situations where we'd be more likely to see it, which would be sort of more now going forward as opposed to what we've had in the past. But anyway.
Yeah, it's a curve, it's a logistic curve, we're gonna top out at a certain amount, and where we are on that curve just depends, it's the second year in, so we're probably on the steep part right now.
Well, and you also have the pandemic, which is really
Sure, that accelerated things.
twisted the whole housing, real estate market
Absolutely.
like crazy, and so trying to predict where housing is going, next month even.
Right.
Any further comment? I'd like to kind of
Start the meeting.
start the meeting.
Yeah,
I was anxious to start the meeting, so apologize for that. The next, after public comment, is the public hearing section.
All right, so if we're going to start the public hearing is a situation where you have to announce, it's a public hearing. If we could, please, if you have comments in public, who are on Zoom, if we have any, if you could ask to be recognized, I'll recognize anyone from the public. Members, if we could, the discussion is open, but if, again, because of the nature of the Zoom thing, if we could just, and I will recognize you and we'll have our conversation. And with that, could you please read what the
first one was last month we held, we kind of talked about it briefly, but let's step back. Last month we held a approval for a subdivision that we as a group, as a board approved, but they had requested us not to submit it to the county pending some issue regarding the purchase of the land and purchase of that. That is still sitting over there. It was never submitted to the county. We are waiting for that. The reason why we would like it on the minutes is so we don't forget about it. Because if it doesn't show up on the minutes, it's going to sit there and we may never close it. So we'd like to keep it alive only in the sense that we find out when they want us to submit it to the county. There's apparently nothing in the regs for us to hold it. There's no limit of us. We can hold it for months.
Does that mean we have to renotice a public hearing?
No, it's been approved, and it's just that they have asked to withhold submission to the registry.
I assume that they will then let us know.
Right.
And so, in that case, we wouldn't be let it languish there for forever and ever. And that
If they don't tell us, they would sit there for.
Is there a sunset on it?
There's nothing in the regs.
There's nothing in the registry or nothing in our regs that suggests that there is a time limit for us between the approval process and the time we actually submit it.
So what you're saying, Sarah, is that we sort of don't need to remind ourselves because they'll remind us when the time comes.
I think we can,
Or we can do both, that's fine.
I think when they do tell us then we should put it on the agenda as something that we show so that anybody who's monitoring it will know that we've released it. And that'll give us adequate time to sign off on it and get it registered.
Yeah, because we have not signed.
Right, neither of us have signed, nor should we until we get that release. And if it gets really stale, then we may ask them to resubmit.
The second is the two gentlemen I have on Zoom here, Tom and Steve. This is the continuance, again, from last month, when we were talking about the lot line adjustment. Now we have the new copies that Julie left for us. So now we have hard copies that we actually can look at. I don't have to try to pull these things up on my computer. Do you guys want to test it to see if we can hear you talk?
Yeah, how you doing?
Good.
Hello?
Yep.
Hello?
Yes? There they are.
Hello?
We can hear you.
You pointed at the ceiling, Tom.
Okay.
There we are.
Get one?
You can, or you can share them.
On the wall. Two here. One more. That's the master, that one. The one right on that one.
Okay, so we've got the maps out.
Go for it.
Okay. So, what you have in front of you actually matches the application that was filed last month. What the Yannick and HTG properties, the Hutchins would like to do is, as you can see, if you're looking at it, the two pieces, parcels, tax map R842 and R845 share a common lot line on the east side of Marsh Brook. And what they would like to do is to eliminate that lot line and reestablish the lot line on the center line of the brook where it originally was. The Yannick parcel was made up of two separate pieces. The main piece on the west side of the brook, and then parcel number 2, which was that small finger on the east side of the brook. So essentially, the HTG properties, the Hutchins purchased R842, and they would like to reestablish the line, the Yannicks would, back along the center line of the brook and eliminate the lot line between the two properties.
This one here.
As you know, that R842 is obviously non-conforming to current ordinance, and by adding that .43 acres, we hope to make it somewhat more conforming.
Is there any issue with the well being on the well radius from the other property, R840?
Yeah, that's kind of why I put that on there, is just so that, you know, there is a 75-foot radius. I don't think that where, you know, Tom obviously can speak for himself, but where they planned on putting any kind of a system in the future, that it would be encroaching on that well radius.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Steve. outside their radius of the 75 feet.
Okay, in our subdivision rules, if a well radius is going to extend into a different lot, when you redo the lines, there needs to be a release obtained. Obviously, this one's easy to get because it's owned by the same people, but you need to have a release, and also it has to be in the deeds to the property that says that you don't hold the town liable for it, and that that this area will be maintained for not being developed. There's specific language in the subdivision regulations for that.
Yeah.
And that should be specified on the plat. And I don't see it here on the plat, though. So I would ask that you amend the plat to show that.
Is there any changes in that, or you just?
That should be a minor adjustment. It just needs to be referenced.
Yep. Would you like that in the notes?
Yes, please. You can refer to the language in the subdivision regulations.
Okay.
Okay, it's very specific. What other comments? What other things do you have to tell us?
That's pretty much kind of the gist of it. This is
Okay.
kind of the first step that the Hutchins wanted to go through in this process, and this is what we were hoping to accomplish.
All right, any other further comments, any other concerns that anybody has?
Just trying to picture this piece of property, but it seems like, unless I'm not in the right spot, there's a little cottage that's not occupied on one of those properties. I thought it was reasonably close to the brook.
Well, can you state that as a question?
Yeah, I think that it's not showing on this lot.
Are there any structures that are not showing currently?
The only thing I think you might be referencing is on lot 44 of the Malabertis. There's a small unoccupied shack not shack, but cabin on that, I guess, which is just the lower section of where Steve has drawn the Malaberti property. Maybe it would be off this map.
Okay, is that R844, are you saying?
Yeah, right.
So that's not a property that we're concerned with?
No, sir.
No.
So, I guess your answer is no. Other comments, any other concerns? I have a question. The lot line that's showing the 192.38, that's between the R842 and R840. I assume that's the new lot line, is that correct?
No, that's a lot line basically that was established in 1976. Thaddeus Thorne did a survey of the Yannick parcel.
Wow.
That depicted all the Yannick parcel as well as this finger that's on the east side of the brook. So those pipes there are actually found.
Wow. So that's that close to the line then?
Yeah, and that's why I went all the way around, the larger parcel and up the road to verify that, because it was of concern when I discovered
Okay? All right, thank you. Other questions? My comment would be that we obviously are looking at non-conforming lots, but it appears that we're also improving on the situation for the lot that's here. So that to me seems to be a smart thing. Anytime we can, and I quote Dick Bennett on this, anytime we can make a non-conforming lot less non-conforming, it's a good thing.
Well, Bill, if they made this total one lot, wouldn't it be conforming based on the road frontage?
Still not. This guy's still shy.
Okay.
I see Sean.
I thought I read there at 500 feet.
500 is for the big lot.
Technically, it's still not conforming. It wouldn't have frontage. Or be less non-conforming.
It's less bad.
But I read here that one of them has 508 feet of frontage in Carter Ranch Road. The other one has 75. I would think if you put that together, that's more than 200, but maybe I'm missing something there, but whatever.
Well, each one.
The road frontage is different places.
Frontage is this part of it. That's the only frontage he has.
Because the other one is the other property.
Yeah, that one doesn't have any frontage.
Right.
That's even less conforming. It's landlocked technically.
Yeah, because the
What you're
frontage,
doing is you're giving it access so you can get to it now.
Right.
because this frontage actually
Yeah,
is.
in effect, what
Right,
I had was
exactly.
this landlocked piece of land here in between these two lots.
Right.
No road frontage. It still has no road frontage, but it's
But
attached
it-
to this road frontage.
And how much is the
I
road
understand that
frontage there?
that's connected to the big piece behind on the other side of it.
I
Or is
can't
it a
read that.
separate lot?
Well, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's a piece of,
All right, have we gone through the checklist on this?
No,
Can we do that?
Sure.
Since we're now live and back to the process.
yes,
Has it been filled out?
nope,
It has not been filled out.
Oh, okay. See, so I can see that this is less than 200 feet,
Yeah.
because that's less than an inch. Okay?
It's a good question, great question. Yeah, keep on asking questions, so you're satisfied, that's what we're here for, right? If you're not good, keep on asking.
no, the checklist.
They did not do a checklist,
Yep, and 2 blank copies.
2 blank copies, you wanna fill one in, or?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll do it.
all righty.
Tell me what you want me to
Just
do.
go through and ask the questions. And we'll do our part and say yay or nay. We'll give you the mic.
Okay. Application signed by the owner. Good. You guys want to look at the application? You just read that, since everything,
Okay, okay.
You sent that out, didn't you?
yes. Well, back, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I see it's signed.
Yep.
Butters list is included, that is in here, I have that. Application fees have been paid, yes.
We have a check.
Mhm. 5 printed copies.
Oh, you said 4 or 5.
We got lots of prints.
1 Mylar. Now,
Yep.
we're gonna accept that, but they're gonna modify it, correct?
We've asked for them to modify it, yes.
But we can accept it, but,
We can accept it conditionally.
but on the checklist, it's yes.
Yeah, they have a mile, yeah. We just-
Title box identified, okay, now this is on the plot,
Mhm.
okay? So title box identified title for the proposed lot line adjustment plot showing town and the plan date.
Lower right-hand corner.
Yep, we found it.
Okay, E911 address for proposed lot if available. Is applicable to this?
Yeah,
Yep,
Tax map, lot number of all lots involved in the lot line
yes,
adjustment. Okay. An ownership chart, yes.
yep,
That's right. Okay. Before adjustment and after adjustment parcel acreage each involved lot.
yes,
Amount of acreage actually being exchanged in acres and square feet.
yes,
Abutter names, tax map, and lot numbers matching separate abutters list. Yes, I did. Those are the same ones I sent out to the abutters list.
Can you answer your own question?
For the record.
I talked to myself.
You did a good job.
Name of zoning districts where lots to be adjusted are located.
yep, that's in the survey notes.
Lower right-hand.
Yep.
Minimum zoning frontage requirement.
In the notes.
No,
It's there, but it's a no.
It's in the notes.
It's in the no.
Yep, number six.
Yep. Plot scale at 1 inch equals 100 feet or better.
Mhm.
yep,
North arrow.
yeah,
Yep.
they got one of those.
Location map clearly showing centered site location, adjustment, and adjacent named roads.
Mhm.
Yep,
Name, license number, address, seal, and signature of surveyor.
Lower right-hand.
Yep.
got it.
Surveyor certificate statement, I certify that.
Yep.
Name, address, and seal of engineer.
Mhm.
I don't see a seal. Where's the seal? Oh, there it is, yep.
Lower right corner.
Boundary survey, including bearing and distance of all lot lines, both current and proposed, showing the entire parcel being adjusted with current lot numbering.
Yeah, this time we got it.
Okay. All zoning ordinance setback lines, i.e. building setback year-round streams.
Mm, yeah.
Soils, minimum of lot size chart demonstrating that each proposed lot meets zoning minimum lot size requirements based on section 6 of the zoning requirements.
Yes,
Soil data chart.
The butters names, tax map, lot numbers matching separate abutters list. I will answer it on my behalf. Yes, that is true. Existing buildings and other human-made objects remaining.
There's no buildings on this property, correct?
There are no buildings
That's
on
what he
this
said,
part.
there's no names.
Would that be in a note? To say that? All I got is an option, is a check or no check.
Well, if they're required on it and they're not on it, then.
Got it,
that
okay.
would be-
Deed restrictions, if any, copy of deed and statement indicating no knowledge of deed restrictions may be submitted.
Number 7. Notes.
Note 7.
Location of existing and proposed water supplies within 200 feet of the involved lots. Show protective radii for all these water wells streams.
Yep.
On that, I take the time then to note that 4.1.7 on the ball radius is the section in the zoning ordinance that you need to look at in order to update the plat for the comment.
to the well for this residence here?
Sorry?
On 43, you know, there's a residence, I don't see a well.
It says no well or leach field observed.
Okay,
On lot 43,
yeah.
what I did observe was a 1-inch water line running from the back of the house to the brook.
Got it.
Downhill or uphill?
That was their story, I apologize.
Okay, location of existing and proposed sewers and septic systems within 200 feet of the involved lots.
There's one leach field shown.
Location and names of all existing streets.
Yep.
Last, floodplain land, clearly include base flood elevation, data, floor line, flood line, way, flood hazard area, 100-year, floodplain boundary, and the boundary of the River Conservation District.
It's here.
That is depicted on the lot overview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay?
It did not, the actual floodplain limit did not come up into the area we're doing the adjustment, so I put it on the lot overview. It's the hatched area.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Refer to note 5, that has the reference FEMA map number with the effective date.
Duly noted that says flood hazard zone and it's specified. Thank you.
That is it. Now we just have to sign it and date it.
Any, any additional requests, comments, concerns?
No, only that, like I said, that we know the water's coming from, but not knowing where the septic is, that could be an issue in the future. Where this lot is so small, this number 43.
And it's an existing lot, we have no control over that, and we do not, as a planning board, deal with leach fields. And
No, I
existing
imagine it's
and
accessible.
existing lots. It's an old house.
So I'll move that we approve the application conditional on the deeded waiver of the
Do
will.
we have to, is there some requirement we accept the
No, okay, yeah.
application?
No, I move that we accept
We
it.
accepted it last time.
Oh, that's right, we did accept the application last time. Okay, thank you, please, yes. I just want to make sure we're good.
So I move that we approve the application conditional on the deeded waiver regarding the well radius on the.
Yeah, for the well release.
Yep.
Road.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve the application. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous vote.
Gentlemen?
That's what they said that.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Oh, please, thank you for your patience.
Wow.
Put this one on top, so keep that on the outside.
Wow.
Paper.
I'm getting used to all this keyboard.
All right. Do we have any other items
No,
before the
no.
public hearing?
No other item regarding
Then I
public.
declare the public hearing closed. And I
Oh, sorry.
proceed with our regular meeting.
Next on the agenda, discussion of topics for the 2022 town meeting.
All right, I'll go first. we had a presentation made to us on one of our Zoom meetings regarding groundwater regulations and Hart's location, the smallest town in New Hampshire, is probably the first to have agreed to put them into their zoning ordinance. I'd like to borrow, use whatever we can of their work and effort to update our own zoning ordinance. We talked about doing this now for 2 years, and we haven't done it. And it seems like there was a pandemic got in the way. But I would like to still make some progress on this and have it be something that we get done. Not that we have many issues, but the best way to avoid issues is to ensure that you have regulations in place.
We do groundwater monitoring for Maloon Road, the old dump, so that's one area that we, pay, I don't know, $5,000 a year to do that. So I don't know what, scope you're looking at in terms of money.
The purpose of the groundwater regulations really is to ensure that we have an ordinance in place. We have none right now, or very little, that regulates how or what we do as a town to ensure there are state requirements, but it's been identified that the state requirements require that local boards place in ordinances how they're going to enforce. We have nothing. So it's bringing it home.
I guess, it's just a question of, what regulation you decide to use, what's gonna be the cost effect of that each year? Because obviously you have to pay for some type of monitoring system or measuring or,
Maybe.
there's something to think about, in terms of.
It's something to consider as we look at what we do and what we put in.
Right.
Like any regulation you put in, there's a possibility of a cost associated with it. But generally, it's the violators that you request are going to pony up the funds to ensure that it's done right. It's going to get done if they're doing something, and hopefully the regulation will be set properly. If we do our job right, it will.
Should we look at the Harts location one at the next meeting and see if that's a good starting point?
I think we could do that. Give us something to do. So we look at short-term rentals and stuff.
Is there a reason why we don't have anything? Or why this hasn't come up before?
Mostly because
Just haven't gotten around to it.
we haven't gotten around to it yet.
Oh, okay.
We don't have a problem.
No,
I mean, no,
problem is-
we don't have a problem. It's
Right.
the we don't have a problem kind of thing.
Got it.
We don't have a McDonald's either, But somebody decided that before we had one, that
Right.
maybe we ought to look at that. And we did. That lady.
It was certainly useful as far as the towers are concerned, the communication towers, that we got regulations in place before any tower came in. And it wasn't long after that we put them in that we had a couple of situations where our regulations helped keep things the way we wanted them.
It's an amazing idea. Do something before you have a problem.
Oh, no, I'm glad we're doing it. I'm just saying, it's been around a while. Water's been around a while.
Well,
Keep it that
we
way.
don't have that much. I mean, we have a few streams and not much for wetlands, so it really hasn't come up.
There's not much, above us, to the notch and then it crests the other side, so there's nothing that's really.
The driver on this right now is that the folks doing the watershed deal, would like to have all of the towns that are involved in the watershed have regulations in place. And then they can look at it and say, look, from stem to stern, we've got something in place to help us protect the groundwater.
And do you know in the Harts location ordinance, is it like based on setbacks from water sources?
I haven't looked at it.
or-
I haven't looked at it.
Let's
We can
get
get-
that and look at it and see what
Yep.
it says.
We can take a look at it, see if it makes any sense for us, or if it's totally out. I mean, they don't have much either. I mean, they've got the Dry River,
Exactly.
which doesn't have a lot of water coming out of it. But they're also the top end of the Saco, so.
Now, the presentation that we brought, as I recall, it was based on a report made by a consultant. Do we have a copy of that report, or would that have useful information in it that we could?
Did we receive a copy? I think we did receive a copy of that. We may have even distributed it.
I don't think I have it, unless it's electronic.
OSI?
How about if we make sure that we distribute a copy between now and next meeting?
Okay,
And that was the report given at the conservation.
Conservation Commission, the
Yeah.
meeting that we were all supposed to join in on.
There wasn't a lot of detail in it. It was mostly water's important and it flows downhill.
Right.
It was an overview.
Yeah.
They'll have a new recipe for it.
Haven't changed gravity.
God hasn't given up his Indian Coke or keeping the recipes.
All right, anybody else got one?
How about, do we have anything in any of our rules and regs about, as far as a plant like Poland Spring coming in and wanting to pump water? Because I was talking to years ago when I put in my well, that we have more true artesians in Jackson than any place else in the state. So if we have that kind of water supply, maybe it's something we should.
Maybe you shouldn't have said that on public record.
Under your breath.
We may have several true artesians, but I know as far as using Eagle Brook as an example, that there is a vein that comes down that they were able to tap into to get sufficient water for the whole, for all 20 houses there. But you go 100 yards, 200 yards off, and you look at the information from wells that were dug. They have to go, it's not for a broad area at all.
Well, just in my neighborhood, I mean, I'm getting 7 gallons a minute out of mine, just running up to talk Gordon Lang. I don't know how many gallons he's getting. You know, Nancy Crowther, I think, was getting about 1.5 gallons.
So it's very spotty.
Yeah.
And certainly something like that could be part of.
I think we can make that part of our review.
Yeah.
Let's incorporate that. I think that's a reasonable thing to incorporate as we look at water. Anything else? Going once, going twice. It's gonna be short-term rentals.
Great.
Okay. Now, this is the first time we're going to do this in person, since this ordinance was effective after we went remote. So bear with me, because these are it. So you all have a copy, you should have gotten a copy of the list. They're on the list of who they are. These are the applications with little notes regarding them. This guy comes prepared, he has all his copies of everything I sent him. So the first one on the list, general, is, oh, where's my agenda now? So much.
The one on Jackson Highlands.
It's, yes, Jackson Highlands. Hopefully she put them in the same order she gave them to me. No, let's just switch back. Okay, Highlands, okay. Tax card is 2 bedrooms, no building permit, septic is 2 bedrooms, advertises 2 bedrooms, sleeps 6 people. This is a new one, like last month, we got one of our first new short-term rental applications. This is a new one, so they are going to be limited to their 30 rentals. So this is not a grandfather one. But they meet the requirement, tax card 2, septic 2, advertise 2, sleep 6.
And do we, John, have any monitoring of limited short-term rental applications?
Nothing aware of. Theoretically, you can do 32-week rentals and cover the whole year.
Right, but
It'd be pretty hard to monitor that. Some 2 weeks,
yeah,
some 1
I
week.
don't know how exactly you
Yeah.
monitor it, but you know, the idea with that was, you know, to allow reasonable rentals for someone that, you know, like we discussed, renting out to your friends and family, or you know, you renting out when you're not using the place yourself as a vacation home. But by limiting the number of rentals, it would disincentivize anyone buying a property strictly for a short-term rental operation.
Right.
In other words, if I'm investing in property to run as a short-term rental business, I'm not gonna buy property that's restricted in terms of number of rentals.
You think that, huh?
But it's certainly possible that someone would say, well,
Sure, 30 weeks, I mean,
they'll
you
never
know.
know if I rented out 60 times a year. Maybe something we want to keep an eye on.
It's
Just,
pretty hard, I would be pretty exceedingly difficult to monitor that.
Yeah, there's one thing, is that we have laws in our state, and it says that the selectmen are required by law to enforce the zoning ordinance. And if you fail to do so, then when we pass something, when the town is chosen, they have overwhelmingly supported the short-term regulation that we would have this. This is part of the reason that it passed, I think, was that we limited short-term rentals going forward. If we're not going to do that, then we really don't have a zoning ordinance. And the selectmen have failed to do their job. You do have a requirement to do so. So, yeah, no, we don't have them, we haven't had them, we don't even know how we're gonna do that, but someone has to come up with the idea of how that's gonna be managed going forward.
When you pay the state tax, rooms and meals tax, are they recorded how many rentals there are?
They, depends. If you are doing it through Airbnb, they do not provide individual information. They do and that's part of the deal, that they have been able to take all the information they have and just send it to the state. If you are an individual and you have a room and meals tax, that is recorded. In fact, it's required as part of the process.
so, but if Airbnb is the one collecting, submitting the taxes, and that's still a public record of some sort?
It is, but again, there's no individual information.
It's
Not
just
even from
like
the state?
Airbnb is paying for all the rentals. in
They are,
New Hampshire.
in effect, they're acting as and the state has agreed to that. So to your point, if someone has their own R&M tax record, we could probably ask them to provide that, or there might be some way of being able to get that information as a public record, or I don't know if it's a public record or not. But at least the information would be available somewhere in the data realm. Whereas the Airbnb would be, or would be within their system, and it doesn't actually get transmitted to the state, if I'm understanding correctly.
No, the problem is, it's just like, I mean, I kind of sympathize with the selectmen because.
I'm not, by the way, I'm not criticizing them, I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying, what I'm gonna say now is mainly because the cost and time of monitoring it, and to me, that maybe we should look in the future at charging more money to short-term rentals to cover the cost of hiring somebody to monitor short-term rentals in the town.
Why wouldn't we just simply ask the people who are in this position to report to us?
Well, in this particular situation, I can see how it would be a very difficult thing to monitor. I mean, how do you monitor
Well, what if I just say,
how many rentals? I mean,
what if I just say, how about you just tell me, how many, show me a record of your rentals for last year?
Put it part of the application.
How hard would that be?
is it legal for us to demand those records?
Depending on the integrity of the people who are giving you the answer.
I don't
You may have
have
two
answers
sets
to
of
any of those questions. What I'm-
Yeah.
So if we don't really have answers to any of those questions.
It'd only be for the new ones, because all the ones up until last month that we've approved are
And we're
grandfather.
still waiting on the state to figure out what they're gonna do with short-term rentals, and
And there are a couple of different
Maybe
flavors
next
of
year.
this,
maybe
too,
next
because-
year. I mean, we've been maybe next yearing for about 3 years
Yeah.
now, so I don't know, maybe next year we will have it, we won't have to worry, and selectmen will not have to be concerned about it, because we'll have a different set of requirements next year. That will overlay whatever we've said, who knows?
But there are additional complications, because we've also said if there's a full-time resident, then they can do unlimited short-term rentals, and so there's another aspect. I mean, again, I think even more important than enforcement of what's going on, which isn't to say it's not important, but I think really the biggest intent of what we did was, again, to de-incentivize the short-term rental business operations in the residential district. And so even though there are ways you can skirt around what we put in place, if you're looking to purchase property and run it as a business, and this town has restrictions that you might get caught, and this other town doesn't, you're gonna buy property in the other town. So that's really, the fact that we can't absolutely enforce everything that's in the ordinance doesn't mean that it's not a worthwhile and effective ordinance.
Right. Don't disagree with any of that. I do feel that we ought to be thinking about ways to ensure that the zoning ordinance works.
Yeah, and I agree with that too.
So,
But in the long run, it's probably going to be mostly, it's gonna be neighbors reporting, or someone like Kevin that just makes it a hobby. But there may be tools too that will come down, just like
Five of them, but are
we're still on number one.
I'm sorry?
We're still on number one.
all right,
Yep, yep.
so
I know,
if we
so
could
I'm
then,
asking.
please, I would like to just keep our comments directly to the applications that we have in front of us. And let's get through them and let's get our meeting done.
So are there any issues or concerns with the one on Highland Road? There was exactly what they did, tax card 2, septic 2, advertised 2, sleep 6.
Sounds good to me.
Do we accept?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next.
Okay, next one is tax card says 3-bedroom, which I have right here, the building permit. No building permit, no septic. I do have their advertisement here. They advertise for 4 bedrooms, sleeping 10. so they do not meet our requirement.
Do I have a motion to not accept the application?
I'll make that.
Accept the application?
To not accept the application.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to not accept and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Next one is the one on Switchback. Tax card is 3 bedrooms, septic is 2, building permit is 2, and now that does that. 2005, septic says must remove 3rd bedroom. They've updated their ad to say 2 bedrooms and sleep 6. We did confirm because their initial advertisement said 3 bedrooms. We went back to them and they have updated it because we pointed out to them they were in violation, and they have given us proof that they've modified their application. They do now only sleep 2 bedrooms, sleep 6. So this is the system working.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hallelujah.
At least we have the place out till the next printing.
Did
Well, yeah, but you know, at least it suggests to folks that they can't just, and if they do go back to the other, then they can go back to a violation, and somebody sees that, can complain, can go to the select people, and they can start charging them at a rate of $250. I mean, begin the process.
Scott, did you make a motion to accept it? I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Next.
Next one, tax card is 4 bedrooms, building permit is 3, septic is 3. Advertised for 4 bedrooms, sleeps 12. They have not changed their advertisement. They are still saying that. They have made no changes.
Unacceptable.
Yeah,
Motion not to accept.
I'll make it.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. Last one is on Carter Notch Road. Tax card says 4, no building permit, septic 4, advertises 1 bedroom, 2 guests.
Oh.
Sounds easy.
It's just,
Now, this is this one that's interesting. This is,
So that'd be a residence,
it is a residence.
it's
Yes.
an owner occupied residence.
owner occupied residence, so
Right.
he can rent it out as much as he wants.
Okay.
Does that come under short-term rental?
Yeah, that was my question.
So I didn't think
Yeah, but somebody suggested that he needed to.
I think it is, it's just like doing the 30 rentals, although he's not limited to 30 rentals, because he's.
Because he's- okay, that's the issue,
house.
okay.
And
Because
if,
you do it
and
for
if
a
you
long time.
rented out the house and someone else lived full-time, the same thing would apply.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be you.
So he clearly meets our requirements because he only has 1 bedroom, 2 guests.
All right.
I'll vote to accept.
Second?
Motion and second to accept. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is that it? That's 5?
That's it.
That's it. No other agenda items on the list, that's it?
I noticed that our selectman rep is the only one here with a hat on.
He's had it on the whole time.
I know, but he has to take it off and put it back on.
See, the rule is Dick would take his hat off and put it on when he was ready to go.
We all knew it was time to go.
I second the motion.
I thought of that as soon as I
All
looked
in
over the
favor
sun.
of ending this
fun
thank you all for being here and this first live meeting in a year and several months. And it's good to see you all. Thank you all for being here. John, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Welcome,
Tim?
Jim.
Everybody took a blue book?
No, I have one.
I have one.
Okay.
No, because we're off the meeting now. I am a little frustrated because I do have a friend up in Tyrol. His house is going on the market next Thursday because he's got 5 short-term rentals around him. And he just bought it. He did put a price in on a Mirror Lake house. He's not sure it's gonna go through, but he's cleaning the house out right now. He was gonna move to Jackson. He was gonna put a $500,000 addition on that. He's just decided not to do it because of short-term rentals. So they are destroying our neighborhoods.
So they're changing things to reflect what we've been doing now for the last 15 years, or 20 years, or 40 years, and things change.
Well, it's more apparent now. It never was this bad.
Short-term rentals is different.
Short-term rentals